All right. Rivalry week. Yeah. Wow. What a week, right? Fantastic games on all around. There were some really close ones. There were some surprising results here, and I'm not going to waste any time. Let's just go and get right into it. What I will say though, if you aren't subscribed, what are you doing? Go ahead, subscribe, leave a like, comment down below, do anything you can, help support the channel. I know these videos are long. I know that there are people that, well, I actually don't know that there are people that watch all the way through. For those of you that out there that do it, I appreciate you. For those of you that don't, I fully understand it. I'm going to work next year to try to make these reviews a lot shorter, but I like doing them. I like talking about football, especially college football. I just like talking about sports. If you know me, you know. So let's go ahead and dive right on into it. We got Tuesday. We did have some action games on Tuesday, and well, they both had their interesting things going on, right? So it was all Ball State in this first game here. Ball State clinches a spot in a bowl game as they beat Buffalo 20-3. So Ball State kind of been on and off this year. I thought this team would definitely be a lot better coming into this season, but alas, did not pan out that way. But Buffalo, they finished the season 4-8. I know you can't really read it that well. It says 4-8. And of course, Ball State clinches a spot in a bowl game. They're 6-6. So for Ball State, hopefully they can find their offense in whichever bowl game they may play in, which I will talk about more next Monday. So So the schedule will look a little different for Conference Championship Week because I'm busy all day Sunday, so I won't really be able to do anything. But so I won't be able to like instantly react to the playoff field, things like that. But I'll talk about more about that at the end of the video. But Ball State able to win that game there. Western Michigan and Northern Illinois here, and this was all Western Michigan. Great performances all around from Western Michigan, especially on the offensive end. Caleb Ellaby, who's the quarterback, 338 yards, 5 touchdowns, and Sky Moore, arguably their best wide receiver, 12 catches for 206 yards and 4 touchdowns. They outgained Northern Illinois 636 to 291. That's the total yards of offense. And Western Michigan probably gets themselves into a little bit better of a ball game with that win, but Northern Illinois still going on to the Mid-American Conference Championship game. Who are they playing? We'll talk about that in a little bit. That does it for your Tuesday slate. There were no games on Wednesday, but there were 2 games on Thanksgiving on Thursday. Hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving. I know I did. Ate a lot, probably too much. But hey, that's the way to do it, right? Always eat too much on Thanksgiving. If you celebrate it. If not, totally fine as well. Fresno State and San Jose State here. So Fresno State at this point was still in vie for a spot in the Mountain West Championship game. And what they had to do was they had to beat San Jose State, which they did, and they beat them handedly. Jake Haener had 343 yards for 4 touchdowns. Really helped Fresno State get this win as well. What a season for Fresno State. They pull off some nice wins. They keep some games close as well. This Fresno State team, watch out for them in a bowl game. You don't want to face this Fresno State team in the bowl. They can be pretty dangerous offensively. So we'll see what happens there, where Fresno State falls. But San Jose State, this was their chance to clinch a spot in the bowl game, and it did not happen. So they lose by 31. No postseason this year for San Jose State. A little bit of a disappointment considering how good they were last year, but just didn't happen this year. Ole Miss and Mississippi State. Of course, the Egg Bowl on Thanksgiving, such a nice tradition to have along with NFL football. Did watch that as well with family. But I also watched this game because I was really intrigued. This is the first ever 10-win season in Ole Miss program history. I know, a little hard to believe, right? But this is the first 10-win season in Ole Miss program history. We'll see what they do next year, but they are going to a New Year's Six bowl game. Matt Corral played pretty solid, 234 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, and his favorite target today, or I should say Thursday, Dontario Drummond, 14 catches for 138 yards. Meanwhile, you have Will Rogers at Mississippi State at 336 yards for 1 touchdown. But this Ole Miss defense has played so much better this year. Overall, good regular season for Ole Miss from Mississippi State. This is a good regular season as well. 7-5, not necessarily overachieving, not underachieving, about where you want to be if you are Mississippi State, but they do have some excellent wins on their resume, don't they? Bless me. Excuse me. Sorry. Anyway, Mississippi State does have some excellent wins on their schedule. You look at Texas A&M, Auburn, some really nice wins there for Ole Miss. Of course, you have a 10-win season. You're going to a New Year's Six bowl game. Not a bad season for Ole Miss either. Now, moving into games played on Friday. So Black Friday usually has a lot of games going on in Rivalry Week, and there were some interesting ones this week, starting with the first game that went final. It was Texas and Kansas State, and Texas was not going to a bowl game anyway, so they might as well pull out all the stops in this one. They only win by 5. They have to come back to do it as well, kind of come back a little bit as well. It was a little bit of a tighter game than Texas fans would have hoped, because Texas probably is the more talented team than Kansas State, but Kansas State did not have Skylar Thompson playing in this one. But they did have Deuce Vaughn. He had 24 carries, 143 yards, and a touchdown, but it was not enough, as Roschon Johnson, not Bijan Robinson, Roschon Johnson, 31 carries, 179 yards, and a touchdown for him. Him, along with Dicker the kicker, led the way for Texas. He hit 3 field goals in this one to help Texas win 22-17. So even though they don't make a bowl game, it was Sark's first year. Who knows if Texas and Oklahoma are going to go to the SEC next year or in a couple of years? We'll see what happens. Ohio and Bowling Green. You know, this, I have a feeling, is a disappointing season for the Bobcats. Now, I know they got new personnel, new coach, things like that. But with the pieces that they had, they should have done a little bit better. But 3-9, just disappointing for me. But for Bowling Green, this is a good season, comparatively speaking, to years past. When you look at years past and you look at this year, this is a much improved team in Bowling Green. They win this game 21-10. Boise State and San Diego State. San Diego State clinches a spot in the Mountain West Championship game right here as they go ahead and beat Boise State. A little bit of a down year for the Broncos. They only go 7-5, but 11-1 is the record for San Diego State this year. They're in the Mountain West Championship game. And Jordan Brookshire got minutes in this one for San Diego State. He did the majority of the passing, went 11-15, 192 yards and 1 touchdown. If you didn't know, he is the backup quarterback to Johnson that plays at San Diego State. Also rushed the ball 9 times for 46 yards and a touchdown. So good for Jordan Brookshire. I've liked him as a player. I've watched tape of him before. He can be a good player for Brady Hoke and company. Yeah, Brady Hoke is coaching San Diego State. So the 21st ranked Aztecs. I don't know what it is. Whenever I record, I drop stuff. It's a recurring thing. But San Diego State, good job for them. Central Michigan and Eastern Michigan, this was an absolute thrashing. Central Michigan was in control the entire way, and Lou Nichols is insane. He is a fantastic running back. 44 carries, 194 yards, and 1 touchdown, and he's only a freshman. So if they can gather more talent at Central Michigan, look out, because that could be the best team in the Mid-American Conference come next year. It really could be. It could be. Because Central Michigan with Lou Nichols, that fantastic running back, they have a solid quarterback as well. Both these teams you're going to see in bowl season. But Central Michigan, probably not a team that I would want to play, especially if I don't have the best rushing defense, because Lou Nichols, he can tear you up. He is the Kenneth Walker of the Mid-American Conference. He is a stud. He's insane. Moving on now, Utah State and New Mexico. Easy win here for Utah State. They also clinch a spot in the Mountain West Championship game. Logan Bonner had a 5-touchdown performance. While it wasn't Devin Tompkins, it was Derek Wright on the receiving end for Utah State in this game. 4 catches for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns led the way for the Aggies. As this is your matchup right here. San Diego State, Utah State in the Mountain West Championship game. Again, I'm going to preview and predict all 10 championship games on Thursday. So wait for that video to come out. Of course, tomorrow I'll be reacting to the again, I'll talk about my schedule at the end of the video. Now, how about this game here? So Nebraska is the best 3-9 team in college football history. They have almost a 90-plus point differential, meaning they've scored 90 more points than they've allowed over the season, and they're 3-9. I believe their 9 losses are by a combined 56 points, somewhere like that, which is under 7 points per loss, or the margin of loss, I guess. So Nebraska, definitely a disappointing year. This was Scott Frost's best team yet, and he went 3-9 with it. 1-8 in Big Ten play as well. Yeesh. But this was also a collapse. Nebraska was up 21-6, and then Iowa stole the momentum. They had a blocked punt that was recovered returned to the end zone for a touchdown, also a safety. And then Tyler Goodson happened on the day. He had 23 carries for 156 yards. Now, this was the debut of Logan Smothers, at least from a starting perspective. Maybe thinking of moving on past Adrian Martinez. He was hurt in this game. Who knows? I think that quarterback battle will be interesting next offseason. But 16 of 22, 198 yards, no touchdowns, and 1 pick for Logan Smothers, but did run the ball 24 times for 64 yards and 2 touchdowns. So like Martinez, he can still run the ball. And I think Smothers is the better passer. I would like to see Smothers start next year for Nebraska. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but that is what I would like to see happen. And then for Iowa, of course, you go with Petrus or do you go with Padilla next year? That's another interesting quarterback battle to watch. And that defense as well. How much do they lose off that defense? We know Linderbaum has gone to the draft, but Iowa now is in the Big Ten championship game. We'll talk about why later. But their matchup is very interesting. We'll talk about the Big Ten more as the video goes along. UAB able to beat UTEP. This has been a good season for UTEP. The second half of the season, they've kind of slowed their roll a little bit. But UTEP's still a very good team, as is UAB. Both these teams will be in bowl season. Air Force will also be in bowl season. They get the easy win over UNLV. They had no pass attempts in this game. They ran 69 plays, all of them rushing attempts for 511 yards of total offense and 6 rushing touchdowns. Gets them past UNLV. Williams on the other side had 2 touchdowns as well. That was the only 2 touchdowns UNLV scored, but it didn't matter. Moving on to this game now. This game was interesting, and I did watch the majority of this game right here because I was interested. I think South Alabama is a good enough team to get into bowl season, but they had to get through Coastal Carolina, who now has 10 wins on the year as they win in overtime. Grayson Mccall in this game for Coastal Carolina, 176 yards for a touchdown and 1 interception. Again, I drop things when I record. I don't know what happens. Man, I got to get my stuff together, right? Also, Grayson Mccall, 16 carries for 59 yards and a touchdown as well. But Shamari Jones was the story for Coastal Carolina in this one. 23 carries, 211 yards, along with 1 touchdown. On the other side, though, for South Alabama, some good stuff. Jake Bentley, 354 yards, 2 touchdowns, but 3 picks doesn't help. And then Jalen Tolbert, of course, one of the best receivers in the nation, had 10 catches for 191 yards and a touchdown as well. Interested to see what he does this offseason, if he wants to go take his talents to the NFL, if he wants to come back. Interesting to see what happens. But Coastal Carolina does get the win in overtime. The extra point doinked off the upright, so that gave South Alabama a chance, but they just couldn't get past that Chanticleer defense and fall short. Arkansas and Missouri. Arkansas pretty much had this one in control from start to finish. No real notes here on this one. Arkansas, a good season at 8-4. A very good season. Arkansas can become a pretty good team here next year into 2 years from now as well. This team is going to keep building on what they've done this year. Sam Pittman has done a really nice job, but we're going to see Missouri in bowl season as well. Don't you worry about that. UCF and South Florida. We're going to see UCF in bowl season, a defensive battle here. In fact, UCF's offense couldn't really get a whole lot going, and their defense saved them here in this one against the 2-9, now 2-10 South Florida Bulls, as they do not lose to their in-state rivals. The Knights are going bowling as well. They get the 4-point win. And then last game of this first column here down at the bottom, Utah and Colorado. Fairly interesting game, although it never was really in doubt who was going to win. But Utah gave Colorado chances to win. But of course, this Colorado offense just hasn't been able to get a whole lot going this year. They cannot pull off the upset. Tavion Thomas continues his phenomenal run, 25 carries for 142 yards and a touchdown. He's quickly become one of the best backs in the nation, if not one of the best backs in the Pac-12 for sure, and leads Utah to a win. Second column of games, we're kicking off with Cincinnati. Good performance from Desmond Ridder and his favorite target, Alec Pierce. 301 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks for Desmond Ridder. And for Alec Pierce, 8 catches, 136 yards, and a touchdown for Pierce as well. Cincinnati has remained undefeated, and now their shot to get into the playoff looks really good. They got to take care of business next week, though, against Houston. Again, that championship game had already been decided prior to this week. They need to take care of business in that one, and then they are in the college football playoff. Folks from Ohio, take notice. You're going to be jumping on that bandwagon, and we'll get to why. You can see it on screen right now. We'll get there. We'll talk about it. It's going to bring me sorrow because I'm an Ohio State fan, but we're going to talk about it. Again, I hold my L like a man. Iowa State beat TCU, denying them a bowl bid, and Zach Evans is going to transfer from TCU. And likely landing spot for him, probably Georgia. Remember Zach Evans before he went to TCU? The only 5-star TCU's ever picked up was a original commit to Georgia, and now and then decided to change his mind and go with TCU. Now probably on his way to Athens to play for Kirby Smart, and what a pickup that would be for him. Georgia looks like they're going to win the national championship this year, and if they were to pick up Zach Evans as well, a guy who's had a fantastic year at TCU, that would be a solid pickup. But again, we'll see where he goes. But after this loss, Iowa State, you'll see in bowl season, not as good of a season as people predicted, but still going bowling. North Carolina's also still going bowling, not as good of a season. And again, another collapse on Friday in this one, but what a comeback by NC State. I mean, I did forget to mention Breece Hall kind of went crazy in this game. 18 carries, 242 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And now back to your regularly scheduled programming with this one. Going through stats first, Sam Howell, 147 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 18 carries for 98 yards and 2 touchdowns. Meanwhile, British Brooks, 15 carries for 124 yards for him. On the NC State side of things, Devin Leary, 4 touchdown performance, 247 yards and 4 touchdowns, while Marcus Emezi, this is the Marcus Emezi effect. He had 2 touchdowns. He had the 2 biggest touchdowns of the day, the 2 biggest touchdowns of the game. 5 catches, 112 yards, and 2 touchdowns, as I just said. NC State was down 30-21 with 2 minutes, 12 seconds left. They go down the field. They score in 37 seconds. Of course, who else? Emeka. Not Emeka. I apologize to NC State fans everywhere. Emezi. Okay, got it. Emeka Emezi, 2 biggest touchdowns of the day, including that one. Then they recovered an onside kick that should have been recovered by the hands team at North Carolina. Didn't happen. NC State goes down, scores that one as well. North Carolina has a shot, though, but they can't get it in the end zone. And North Carolina State wins a phenomenal game. And they come back down 9 with 2 minutes left to do it. Washington State and Washington, Max Borghi had a great day, 22 carries, 129 yards, 2 touchdowns to lead the Cougars to the win. And at this point, Washington State is still viable for the Pac-12 championship game, but we'll talk about who got there later. This win knocked Oregon State out of contention, but we'll see if Washington State made it or if Oregon made it. Again, if you watch this video, you probably already know. In the games on Saturday, some easy ones right off the bat. Georgia beating Georgia Tech, blanking them. No real surprise there. Navy beating Temple. Temple has not been great this year. Neither is Navy. But of course, we have that Navy-Army game coming up in a couple of weeks. And speaking of Army, they were able to run over Liberty. And I was kind of surprised at this. So Malik Willis had 305 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, along with 16 carries for 37 yards and a touchdown as well. But Jacoby Buchanan with Army. Now, Army, again, like the Armed Force Academy teams do, they're on the triple option. And Jacoby Buchanan, 22 carries, 80 yards, 3 touchdowns. Tremendous performance from Jacoby Buchanan. And Army able to run all over Liberty, pretty much did whatever they wanted en route to a 15-point win. Phil Jurkovec did not look like himself in the Boston College Wake Forest game as Wake Forest gets to 10 wins and clinches a spot against Pitt in the ACC championship game with the win. Jurkovec went 3 of 11 for only 19 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Also had 11 carries for 66 yards, but very uncharacteristic of Phil Jurkovec to have that bad of a stat line. But Wake Forest, again, that offense, crazy. They were able to put up enough points, and they're going to go to the ACC championship game to play Pitt. So there you go. Maryland and Rutgers. This game was for a bowl spot. This game was to decide who goes in the bowl. Both teams came into this game 5-6, and it really left no doubt on who should be the one in the bowl game. It's Maryland. Rutgers, you're close. Greg Schiano is close to getting Rutgers back to a bowl game. Maybe next year's the year he pulls it off, but not this year. Maryland takes it to them. Talia Tagovailoa, 312 yards, 3 touchdowns, along with 10 carries for 16 yards and a touchdown, while Ty Fleet Davis, 18 carries for 152 yards and 2 touchdowns. Again, Maryland was taking it to Rutgers, and they get the win. Baylor narrowly escapes against Texas Tech. Abram Smith had 30 carries for 117 yards and a touchdown, while Treston Ebner only had 12 carries for 38 yards, but had 4 catches for 118 yards and a touchdown receiving. As Garibay, remember, he hit the crazy 62-yarder to upset Iowa State. Well, he had a 53-yarder, so again, it's like money. It's like cake. Oh, but he missed it. Missed the possible game-tying field goal. Texas Tech is still going to a bowl game, but Baylor is now stated their case to go to the Big 12 championship game, and again, we'll see whether or not they got there. Again, it all depended on Bedlam, what happened there. There's a little sneak peek. Where were we? Oh, yes. Akron and Toledo. Toledo with the easy win there. No real question. Houston with the easy win over UConn as well. Now, there were many games on Saturday, but there was only one the game. Let's talk about it. Michigan. Wow. What a performance by the Wolverines, and what a performance from Hassan Haskins. Are you kidding me? Bullied the Ohio State defense. Again, this Ohio State defense is young. It's inexperienced, but Hassan Haskins just bullied them. 28 carries for 169 yards, 5 touchdowns. The Ohio State Lions got bullied pretty much all game, offensively, defensively. There you see the defensive line getting bullied. How about the offensive line getting bullied? Aiden Hutchinson had 7 tackles, 5 of them by himself, and he got to C.J. Stroud 3 times in that game. Now is the single sack. Now is the, I believe, this all-time sack leader at the University of Michigan. If not, he holds the single season record for sure with 13 now on the year, and can only grow it when Michigan is going to go to Indianapolis to face Iowa in the Big Ten championship game. We'll talk about why Iowa is there in a second, but just a dominant performance by Michigan. They looked like the better team from start to finish, and Jim Harbaugh finally did it. Maybe the critics can get off his back now that Jim Harbaugh has finally beaten the Ohio State Buckeyes. And I think what this showed for Ohio State is just how young this team is. They have a lot of good pieces on offense coming in, and that's going to be returning next year. Defense, pretty much all of it should be back except pieces on the defensive line. A lot of that defensive line is going to need replaced. So that's going to be the young part of the defense, but the rest should be experienced. I know Ohio State still had some health problems this year, especially on defense, like in the secondary with Cameron Brown, Sevyn Banks. But Ohio State's still going to find themselves in the New Year's Six Bowl, while Michigan can now make the college football playoffs. So we'll see what happens there. But Michigan, a fantastic win, the upset win in the game. Again, snapped Jim Harbaugh's losing streak, also snapped an 8-game series losing streak, and the best rivalry in college football is back. Hopefully games in next year's mean something as well. Miami of Ohio and Kent State. Again, this was for the right to go to the Mid-American Championship game, and it was Kent State that pulled it out in overtime. Dustin Crum, 325 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, but it was the running game that really solidified this for Kent State. Miami of Ohio was kind of playing behind all game, trying to play catch up, and they forced overtime, but they just couldn't win it in overtime. Kent went down and scored, and then they tried to go for 2. Kent went down and scored, and then Miami of Ohio went down, scored, tried to go for 2, and oh no, they went for it all. Both these teams you're going to see in bowl season, but you're only going to see one play an extra game, and that is Kent State. They were able to run all over Miami of Ohio. Xavier Williams and Marquez Cooper combined for 37 carries, 294 yards, and 3 touchdowns. As you see, Kent State, they're going to go face Northern Illinois. Where are they? There they are in the Mid-American Championship game. Again, I'll preview and predict all of those on Thursday. Miami and Duke. Miami and Duke, this was an absolute thrashing. Miami, again, not the season we expected from them, but again, they had health problems with Derek King. Didn't really get going until quite a long ways into the season. But I'm just off today, boys. I apologize. Or girls, for whoever watching this. 47-10 winner of that game there are the Miami Hurricanes. Moving on now to another game inside the state of Florida. This one in Gainesville, in the swamp. Florida State. What an interesting game this was, huh? Jordan Travis, fairly solid day for him. 202 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, along with 17 carries, 102 yards, and a touchdown on the ground for him. But Florida pretty much jumped out to a lead in this one and wasn't going to let it go. Florida State tried to make it interesting late, but there was just too little time. Could not pull an NC State-like comeback. Again, this game was for a spot in a bowl game as well. And Florida, now without Dan Mullen, going to be searching for a new head coach, or actually just hired a new head coach. They hired Billy Napier of Louisiana. I think that's a fantastic hire. Again, during the offseason, I'll look at some coaching hires, what I think is good, what I think is bad, where different teams can end up looking, things like that. We'll look at that this offseason. But Billy Napier going to be the new head coach of Florida. Not going to coach the bowl game, but Florida is going bowling this year. Neither of these teams are going to be going bowling, but Rice does get the 35-31 win over Louisiana Tech, and Georgia State gets the win over Troy. Troy was hoping to go to a bowl game in this one, and it could not happen. So Georgia State ends Troy's hopes of a postseason, as they will be going to the postseason, as they will be having a postseason of their own. All right, third column of games now. This top game surprised me. Now, North Texas was 1-6 through 7 games this year, and pretty much everyone counted them out. But remember what I said in the offseason. This North Texas team can give some people scare. I thought this North Texas team was going to be sneaky good, and they were. For the last 5 games, they were tremendous, especially in this game here. UTSA just couldn't stop North Texas run game, because listen to this. I'm going to pronounce this name wrong, so I apologize. Ikaika Ragsdale, one of the running backs for North Texas, not the main one. The main one's DeAndre Torrey, but Ragsdale had 20 carries for 146 yards and 2 touchdowns, while DeAndre Torrey had 23 carries, 108 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Again, just UTSA could not stop the run game in this one. And North Texas, back from the dead, making a bowl game. This is a really hot football team right now. You do not want to be playing them if you match up with them in bowl season. So if you're a fan of a team that matches up with North Texas, I would be worried. But UTSA, that ends the undefeated season. Still a very good season. They're going to get into a solid bowl game. Probably will play a team like BYU if BYU doesn't make a New Year's Six bowl game. If not, they might face a team like Louisiana, App State, something along those lines. But they're still going to get to play a good quality opponent and go out and prove that's a good football team. Because I think it is. I think it's a good football team. I had them at 14 last week. Of course, they're going to drop after this loss, but still a good football team. Not North Texas. North Texas is there. Texas State and Arkansas State. Texas State able to win that one over the Red Wolves, who have really struggled this year. Easy win for App State here going into the Sun Belt Championship game against, of course, Louisiana. And they beat Georgia Southern pretty handedly. Old Dominion and Charlotte. So again, these two teams were off to very different starts at the beginning of the year. Old Dominion was very slow. Charlotte looked really good. And then both these teams went in opposite directions. Old Dominion has been rising, and now they are in a bowl game as well. So lots of great comebacks in the group of 5 in order to make a bowl game this year. But Old Dominion makes the bowl game. They ride Ollie Jennings' receiving performance of 9 catches for 252 yards and 3 touchdowns for him. A great performance. Charlotte, it sucks to see them not in a bowl game, because I thought this team could have been something special, but of course could not keep it maintained throughout the season. They will not be going to the postseason. Neither will any of these teams. Butch Davis, of course, out as the FIU head coach. Now 1-11 are the Panthers, and just lots of things wrong with FIU right now. Apparently scandals, tampering, things of that nature. If something comes out, I'll report on it, but I haven't really seen anything as of late. So Southern Miss gets the win there. Hawaii, they clinch a bowl spot. Again, Hawaii usually plays 13 games in the regular season. They win this one 38-14 over Wyoming. And then the battle of the bottom 10. Who was going to be the not worst team in America? Well, it happened to be New Mexico State, as they beat UMass by 17. So UMass also falls to 1-11 right there with FIU. Illinois and Northwestern, this was an absolute thrashing. I knew Northwestern was going to take a step back. I did not expect Northwestern to be this bad. But hey, you know what happens with Northwestern? It seems like every other year they make the Big Ten championship game. So next year, expect Northwestern to be pretty good. But Illinois I also expect to be pretty good next year as well. Brett Bielema did better than most people expected at Illinois, going 5-7. We'll see what both these teams do next year, as neither of them will be getting into postseason play. Tennessee, of course, Vanderbilt not getting into postseason play, now 2-10 on the year, but Tennessee will as they get their 7th win of the year against Vanderbilt. So now moving on to this matchup right here, Michigan State and Penn State. This was going to be a pretty interesting matchup. Michigan State had some flu bugs. There were some things bothering them with the team, just something going around that locker room. But it did not seem to matter in this game, especially in the cold weather. That field was covered in snow. So let's go through some stats, shall we? Sean Clifford, 313 yards for 3 touchdowns, while Jahan Dotson had the majority of those, 8 catches for 137 yards and 2 touchdowns for him. But on the other side for Michigan State, Peyton Thorne, 268 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception, along with Kenneth Walker. Getting back to his hides and stuff, was shut down by that Ohio State defense that didn't fare too well against Michigan. But he came back in life this week. 30 carries for 138 yards and 1 touchdown for Kenneth Walker. Very good stuff happening there for both of those teams. Penn State, of course, a little bit less of a season than what you would have liked if you're a Penn State fan, but of course, James Franklin just signing a big extension, as did Mel Tucker. Mel Tucker signing a big extension as well. So both of those guys going to be at those programs for years to come. Penn State should get better with years to come, but who knows? Maybe this is Penn State's way out. But I think Penn State usually always pretty competitive. For Michigan State, we'll see if they can have another season like this next year or if they fall off. Purdue, you want to talk about falling off when you look at the season that Indiana had last year, and then just wow. Indiana, you want to talk about disappointments this year. Yes, people are going to look at Miami, North Carolina, Clemson, some of the teams in the ACC. I'm probably going to look at Bama as well if they don't make it. Oklahoma hasn't been as good as people have thought. You can look at some pretty obvious ones elsewhere as well. Iowa State is out there as well. Texas, like there are some teams that did not perform up to at Washington, some teams that didn't perform to expectation this year. But Indiana, Tom Allen went from coach of the year to now Indiana's the worst team in the Big Ten. They went 2-10 this year, and Purdue just thrashed them. Absolutely thrashed them. So you want to talk about disappointments this year? Look no further than the Indiana Hoosiers. Hopefully this team is back next year. But yeah, so we'll see, right? Hopefully Indiana's back next year because I like Tom Allen. I like the piece that they had. I know they had some injury problems and things of that nature as well. But 2-10 for the talent that was on that team is just inexcusable. Inexcusable. Definitely in my mind right now, just off top of my head, definitely the biggest disappointment of 2020. So moving on now, or I guess of 2021, not 2020 anymore, of 2021. Moving on, Oregon and Oregon State, what used to be known as the Civil War, was in Oregon's control. Oregon State made it closer at the end, but of course, this game no doubt belonged to the Oregon Ducks, as they are going to get a rematch against Utah in the Pac-12 championship game with the win here. The 11th ranked Ducks are going to be moving into the Pac-12 championship game into the postseason. And maybe if chaos happens, they have an outside shot at the playoff, but probably not likely, right? Anthony Brown, 275 yards, 2 touchdowns. Travis Dye, 20 carries, 99 yards for 2 touchdowns. And then Devin Williams. Oregon has had some injury problems with wide receivers, but Devin Williams stepped up in this one, 6 catches for 110 yards and a touchdown for him, as Oregon able to win the Civil War, and they're going to go to the Pac-12 championship game. I am going to switch sides earlier here, so let me just slide over. All right, there we go. Louisiana beating their in-state rivals in the University of Louisiana at Monroe. They get that win there pretty handedly, pretty easily. And Virginia Tech clinches a bowl spot now. So 29-24 is the final score there. You're going to see both of the Virginia teams in bowl season. But for Virginia Tech, this was a nice win, a little bit of a comeback win as well. Virginia kind of seemed to have control for most of the game, and then Virginia Tech stole it from them. Braxton Burmeister didn't have a terrific day, only 141 yards and 1 touchdown, but Raheem Blackshear, good day for him. 18 carries for 169 yards and 1 touchdown. Of course, Brendan Armstrong did what he does. He threw for 400 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, but his team did not come out on the winning end. So winners are the Hokies of Virginia Tech. For Virginia, it was a decent season. It probably felt like this team could have done a lot better than 6-6. 6-6, about where it should have been for this Virginia Tech team. But yeah, we're going to see both these teams in bowl season, so we'll see who they get matched up with. Arizona State and Arizona, the battle of the Arizona teams. This one was really not in doubt either, as Arizona State beats Arizona pretty handedly. Western Kentucky and Marshall for the second spot in the Conference USA Championship game. Of course, one of those spots belongs to UTSA. The other spot was going to belong to one of these two teams. It was the winner of this game, and undoubtedly that was Western Kentucky. What a great performance from Western Kentucky there in that game. I actually did end up watching that game, or at least what I could of it. And yeah, so Western Kentucky able to pull that one out. They are going to go face UTSA in a rematch in the Conference USA Championship game. Again, that was a fantastic game in the regular season. We'll see if it's as good of a game in the postseason as well. But they run through Marshall on their way to play UTSA. Minnesota did Iowa's dirty work. Again, if Wisconsin would have won this game, because Iowa beat Nebraska, if Wisconsin won this game, they were going to go to the Big Ten Championship. If Minnesota would have won the game, it would have been Iowa that was going to go. So Minnesota had no shot. They were playing for pride. They were playing for the Axe, and they get to bring the Axe home. They beat the 14th ranked Wisconsin Badgers. Minnesota has had an up and down season, a pretty gritty performance against Ohio State, where you lose your star running back, one of the best running backs in the nation. He also has said Mo Ibrahim is going to return from Minnesota. So absolutely watch out for him. He could be the best running back in the nation next year. Again, I like him to be leading rusher coming into this year. That might be my pick next year, but you're going to find out in around 8 months. I know football is gone for too long, but you're going to find out what my pick for leading rusher will be next year when that time comes around. Again, the offseason, little bit more dead. Not a whole lot of things to do, but I'll still be pumping out videos for you guys. Not as often as during the season, but videos will slow down. I'll talk about it. But yeah, Minnesota did Iowa's dirty work. So the Hawkeyes are going to go play the Wolverines for the Big Ten Championship game. Iowa likely playing for a spot in Pasadena, while Michigan playing for a spot in the playoff. Yeah, how about that, right? This playoff is going to be a lot of fun. But Wisconsin and Minnesota now both 8-4. Looking through some stats here, Graham Mertz, 171 yards, no touchdowns with 1 interception. And then Tanner Morgan, 199 yards, 1 touchdown and 1 interception. There's your quarterback comparison right there. Not a whole lot of offense in this game, but Minnesota had more offense. Therefore, they won the game. That's all you got to do. Tulsa gets bowl eligible against SMU. Tulsa's been a little bit of a surprise to get bowl eligible as well. Remember, they gave Ohio State quite a good fight. Tulsa's been able to really compete with some teams this year. And they make a bowl game. SMU will make a bowl game as well. But Tulsa also has made a bowl game with the win here over SMU. And then let's get to possibly the game of the week here, the Iron Bowl. What a game this was. So for starters, I do have to say Alabama outgained Auburn 388 to 159. And this game ended up going into 4 overtimes. So Auburn really forcing turnover, or Auburn, they did force a turnover, a pick from Bryce Young, gave them a short field. They were able to go score. I was out on the town, so I didn't catch a lot of this game, but I was paying attention to it as I usually do. If I'm not at home watching football, I always pay attention. 317 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception from Bryce Young. Jamison Williams got ejected for targeting on a kickoff return. or punt return, I do believe. So he got ejected, was not able to play this game. And then John Mechie had to take over 13 catches, 150 yards for him. When you look on the other side, not great offensive performances from Auburn because, again, only 159 total yards. Well, that number doesn't seem to be right. They had under 200 yards of total offense. I think when you include sack yardage and things like that. But it was not a good offensive day for Auburn, but they kept in this game. It took 4 overtimes, but Alabama survived. A late touchdown by the Crimson Tide in regulation to tie that game up. They force overtime. Both teams get a touchdown in the first, field goal in the second, and then Alabama converts 2 out of 2 2-point conversions, while Auburn only converts 1. And they couldn't convert the one that mattered, and Alabama is going to escape the Iron Bowl with a win. Still a shot to get into the playoff. They have to beat Georgia this week, though, and that is going to be a tough feat because Georgia looks like the best team in the country by far. And let's move on to the final slate of games. Over here, you have Middle Tennessee and Florida Atlantic. This was for a spot in the bowl game as well, and Middle Tennessee gets it. This is a tenacious pass defense. Statistically, they're not great, but they are ball hawks. So you don't want to throw it near them, especially Reed Blankenship. Sorry, frog in my throat. And Middle Tennessee is going bowling. They win that game. Middle Tennessee, you'll probably match up with a team like North Texas, Old Dominion, or not Old Dominion because they're in the same conference, but probably North Texas. I would look for this matchup in a bowl game potentially. Could happen. Maybe they match up with a team like Louisville or Memphis, someone like that. But yeah, maybe I'll release some bowl predictions. Don't know. Probably won't because, again, it's hard to predict that stuff. But yeah. So we'll see, right? Texas A&M and LSU. So LSU is going to get bowl eligible as well, which means only one team in the SEC is not bowl eligible. And yeah, that's these guys right here. That's Vanderbilt. But Texas A&M and LSU are bowl eligible, and LSU gets bowl eligible in this game. Lots of great defensive performances in this game. But first on the offensive side, Zach Calzada, 242 yards and 3 touchdowns, while Max Johnson on the other end for LSU had 306 yards for 3 touchdowns as well. Jure Jenkins, 8 catches, 169 yards, and 2 touchdowns for him, was their leading receiver. Of course, Keyshawn Boutte out for the rest of the year. And some defensive performances to highlight in this game. Michael Clemens, a defensive lineman for Texas A&M, 4 tackles with 3.5 sacks on the day. But when you look on the other side, Damon Clark also had a good day. 10 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 3.5 tackles for loss. Really, really good day for him. Pitt and Syracuse. Pitt, again, had already clinched a spot in the ACC title game. They didn't have a whole lot to play for here in this one. Meanwhile, Syracuse did have a lot to play for. They were trying to get into a bowl game with this one, but they can't do it. Pitt, just the better team here in this one. They win by 17. West Virginia and Kansas. This one was kept close by Kansas. Kansas next year is going to be one of those teams that I think might win more games than they should. It was going to be the case this year. Of course, their 2 wins this year against South Dakota and Texas. But when you look at this game here, West Virginia barely slides into a bowl game. This game was never really in doubt. Kansas made it interesting towards the end, but West Virginia probably could have won this game by more. Again, it's Kansas, but alas, they only win by 6. They're moving on to play in a bowl game in West Virginia. Another disappointing season, I feel like, for the Mountaineers. But hey, Clemson getting back into the rankings now, 9-3 after really struggling at the beginning of the year. They've started to find their offense. Their defense is still as good as ever. They blank South Carolina, their in-state rivals. They win 30-0. Memphis and Tulane. Tulane, we thought was going to be super competitive this year. Just no. A 2-10 team. Memphis had some trouble with them, but Tulane kept it interesting late. Memphis able to pull out the win though and get bowl eligible. Now 6-6. Memphis is going bowling. Let's see, Kentucky and Louisville. So Louisville has been kind of an up and down. Sorry, I just hit my mic. Louisville's been kind of an up and down team this year, while Kentucky has been a nice surprise. They win this one by 31 points. When you look at some performances on the offensive side, Chris Rodriguez, 16 carries for 121 yards and 1 touchdown, while Will Levis, the quarterback, 149 passing yards, but rushing the football did pretty well for himself. 14 carries for 113 yards and 4 touchdowns for Will Levis. So he might be back next year. I'm not sure what the quarterback situation is there for Kentucky, but they are definitely going to be going into a pretty solid bowl game. Maybe the Outback Bowl. Watch out for that. Could be interesting to watch. Notre Dame and Stanford. Notre Dame absolutely rolls through Stanford, and this team helps Cincinnati a lot because that only loss is to Cincinnati right here, and Cincinnati sitting at 12-0. That helps Cincinnati a lot. So Notre Dame definitely still a good football team. And yeah, so Notre Dame, we'll see what happens with them. But Notre Dame, they're going to get into a New Year's Six Bowl for sure, but they definitely help Cincinnati's case with that being their only loss. Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, Bedlam. Bedlam was fun, huh? How much fun was Bedlam? Oh my goodness. Oklahoma State took the early lead, ended up battling back to Oklahoma to take a 9-point lead, 33-24, and they did not score for the rest of the night as Oklahoma State takes over, knocking Oklahoma out of playoff contention. Lincoln Riley is leaving Oklahoma to go coach at USC, and Spencer Rattler is transferring out. So Oklahoma kind of collapsing a little bit here. I have no idea if Lincoln Riley is going to coach the bowl game or not. Oklahoma might not even make a New Year's Six Bowl. Who knows? But what I do know is that the Sooners did lose this game. Let's look at some stats. Caleb Williams had 252 yards for 3 touchdowns. Kennedy Brooks, 22 carries, 139 yards. When you look on the other side for Oklahoma State, Spencer Sanders, again, he's had a solid year. Nothing really fantastic from Spencer Sanders, though. 214 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions, along with 16 carries, 93 yards, and a touchdown as well. And Brennan Presley, 100-yard kick return touchdown. Oklahoma State also forced a safety in this game as well. They win this one 37-33. Now moving on to play Baylor in the Big 12 championship game for the hopes of the spot in the college football playoff. We will see. Nevada beats Colorado State to finish the year 8-4. They are going bowling. Carson Strong had 288 yards with 4 touchdowns, 2 each to Horton and Romeo Dubs as they win that game there. Couple games to finish out with. UCLA upends Cal's hopes at making a bowl game. They win 42-14. They beat their in-state rival. Also, USC no longer able to make a bowl game either. These two teams are going to play next week because of the cancellation due to COVID. So these two teams will be playing next week. It won't mean anything besides one team gets an extra win. But BYU beating USC 35-31. I'll give it. USC kept it close, but BYU pulled it out at the end. Woo, all right. Hey, that's doing it for, oh yeah, there are 2 undefeated teams left. Playoff scenarios are going to come either Wednesday or Friday. I'm leaning towards Wednesday, but I might have to push it back to Friday just because of scheduling, homework, things like that. So there you have it. This week's schedule is going to look a little different. You're still going to get my top 25 review and reaction tomorrow. Also, my personal top 25 comes out in that same video as well. On Wednesday, you're still going to get playoff predictions in the year 6 bowl game predictions. You might possibly get that playoff scenario video that's behind me there as well. But also on Saturday, so late Saturday night is when I will be posting my review. I'll be posting it Saturday night because on Sunday I got to get up early, go somewhere for a bowling tournament. So I will be busy all day Sunday. And Monday I will come back. First thing I will record my reaction to the playoff field in the New Year's Six bowl games, and hopefully all the other bowl games have come out by then as well, so we can look at those. If not, we'll definitely look at the playoff in New Year's Six, give you some early thoughts, not a prediction yet, but just some early thoughts, and then we'll get into predictions later. But the week's going to look a little different this week. Still going to upload every video I normally upload, but that's going to do it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. If you made it to the end, or if you just skipped through, hey, I appreciate you clicking on the video anyway. Like, comment, subscribe, do anything like that. Remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. I will see all of you guys tomorrow when we react to the playoff rankings, and we will look at my personal top 25 as well. See all you guys tomorrow. Goodbye.